Oh man, so there is so much doom and gloom in the markets right now. We felt this for many weeks, but in this video, I'm going to remind you why there are still plenty of reasons to remain bullish in Bitcoin. Now, we're going to look back on this video when Bitcoin breaks all-time highs again, and we're going to fondly remember that this was the time when we got to work. When others were fearful, this was the time that we rolled up our sleeves, we really educated ourselves, and did what others weren't able to do. When they were fearful, we were greedy. When they were greedy, we were fearful. So let's head straight into charts. Don't forget, check out NordVPN, links in the description. Get yourself set up on the VPN. Last thing you want to be doing is timing the market only to leave the back door open. So make sure you're staying safe in crypto. Make sure you've got a VPN set up. Now, let's get straight into charts. Make sure you're hitting that like button and subscribing, guys, because this video, in the midst of all the doom and gloom that is out there today, and you can watch all of the crypto videos, it's all doom and gloom. I'm going to tell you why, whilst other crypto investors are getting ready to sell, why I'm seeing this as an opportunity to continue to hold my resolve, to hold my coins, and still look for pullbacks, look for opportunities to be buying. And the first thing I'm going to kick off with right now here on the hourly chart, you can see here, we've got this arrow, and that was roughly when Putin spoke. So for those who aren't aware, yesterday, Putin came out, gave a live televised address to the world, which basically declared war to all intents and purposes. It was a very smart move from his point of view. He took two separatist regions in Ukraine, Donetsk and Luhansk, and he said that he's recognizing their independence. That gave him the permission to go ahead and put troops on the land, which in essence people can say is the start of an invasion. So this is not a political channel. That's not what we're here for. But what does that mean for the markets? And the reality is, what we can see in the markets is that the news has been widely shrugged off. It sounds a bit weird, but the markets have taken a battering anyway, mainly due to CPI and inflation woes and the impending interest rate hikes. But you can see here, if you look at the US, S&P flat, Nasdaq up slightly, if anything. Okay, but the only thing we are seeing moving quite a lot right now is oil, which is very normal given the situation we're facing. EU markets, again, they didn't even feel it. And you can argue that this is, EU are going to feel this a lot more economically given the energy crisis that's going to ensue. Germany halts approval of gas pipeline Nord Stream 2 after Russia's action. So that's the gas pipeline, which they were going to move gas from Russia direct to Germany, affecting Ukraine, affecting US exports of gas, because Germany was going to get it directly from Russia. So there's a whole bunch of economic interest going on here. But in essence, we're seeing that the market is absorbing this pretty well. That's the first thing I wanted to point out. Second thing is, let's take a look at fear and greed index. We're sitting at 20. Okay, just remember last month we were sat here at 11. Okay, we're sat at 11. We were worried if there was any support between where we were on Bitcoin and 29. What have we since learned since the last time we were in that situation? We learned that we were able to rotate. And what level were we able to rotate at? Well, if we head to the daily, you'll remember that we rotated at the very important level that is this level here, 32. Okay, very important. We also then had our next pivot at 36. So we know to keep those two levels in mind as two important support levels. So anybody panicking right now that we've lost our last levels of support, not yet. I've walked you through this every single day, guys. We've walked through each of these different levels. And now, yes, we are testing the 36 mark. But if you look at this daily candle, this massive daily candle we've got today has a high of 38,357 and a low of 36,350. Okay, so this is a green day in essence. And we're up now 2.7% here on Bitcoin. But is this just a relief rally? This is what people are worried about. And the way we're going to identify that is we're going to look at this interesting pattern, which a lot of people are not talking about right now. And what we are forming here, guys, is called a descending broadening wedge, okay, or triangle. You can call it a wedge. And the reason it's called that is because it's descending and it's broadening, right? It's getting wider and wider. Think of a megaphone. Now, 72% of the time, these patterns break to the upside, which is very interesting. But obviously, that still leaves 28% of the time it can fall to the downside, okay? So if we break to the upside, which if we see a volume candle break this resistance at the top line of the resistance, that would give us a price target at the top of the wedge of about 41,000, okay? So we would break the 40,000 psychological level. So this is our route out from a technical perspective to get back to $40,000. Now, if we were to look at it to the downside, where are we heading to the downside? Well, we know we've got 36,118. Critical level for us, that's the previous pivot point, which I showed you on the daily chart. That corresponds to here. If we lose that, then we're going into test 32, okay? That's when things are going to get a little bit more gnarly and we're going to get a little bit more worried here. But let's ask ourselves, what can cause this to happen, right? Let's blend our macroeconomics with the technicals we're seeing. We can see this technical pattern, and this technical pattern teaches us, look, most of the time this breaks the upside, fine, but we know technical patterns can be invalidated by macroeconomic news. But to all intents and purposes, yesterday, we've already had the declaration of war. There are already sanctions taking place right now. Like I showed you, the Nord Stream 2 gas pipeline, not NordVPN, that's link in the description, coupon code OLMAN. The gas pipeline, Nord Stream 2, has been suspended, right? UK, where I'm at, Boris Johnson has decided to freeze Russian bank accounts and high net worth individuals from traveling into the UK. As in 3 of them, specifically with political links, I guess. But, these things are happening. These are war actions, right? Sanctions and things to say, look, we don't agree with what you've done. And yet Bitcoin is still up at this moment at 2.86. Now, I know this could just be a relief rally. We can create a lower high and continue to head down. I get that from a technical perspective. Okay, this can happen and we can break to the downside. I understand that. But it doesn't make sense because when the news come out, if this was to affect Bitcoin badly, you would just see this. It would just be something like this, right? If it was that terrible, terrible news. The market isn't that rational to say, oh, I'm going to continue following a normal pattern here, if we get some shock news. So the question then arises, are we now seeing a shift? And the shift I'm talking about is a shift in how Bitcoin is being treated. And this is the single catalyst which I'm excited for, which could mean we could start heading back up despite everything that's going on. So let's take a step back. We know that Bitcoin has been treated in the last few months as a risk on asset. And we've been monitoring this and we've seen the correlation to the NASDAQ. We've seen that when there's been inflation woes or any issues with earnings and growth stocks have been selling off, we saw Bitcoin treated the same. Okay, we saw that happening. But we also understand that longer term, Bitcoin is so much more than that. Bitcoin is a hedge against inflation. It's a hedge against the world as we know it. It's a hedge against fiat currencies and traditional banking and governments and the status quo. We know that, right? We know it's one of those defensive asset classes which people can flock to in times of hardship. But it's still early days for Bitcoin, and therefore it's not gone through adolescence that we know it's got its character and its way of life. It's still developing and people are still trying to understand what type of asset class is this. And so oftentimes what you get is these channels, these waves of people investing in Bitcoin with different motives. But at all times, you've always had that solid level of people who have held Bitcoin for the long-term narrative. Those are the coins that have been bought, that continue to get bought, dollar cost averaging, moved to cold storage, and held never to be seen again. But the ones who are trading it so that's at the very bottom of this, imagine layers of sand, right? That's at the very bottom. Those are the ones with a real long-term narrative. At the very top, you get those newer investors who come in almost daily, weekly, who are treating Bitcoin as a risk-on asset. They're trading it as and when to make a profit for their clients or for themselves. And as far as they're concerned, they could have care about what's going on in Canada with the truck protests and bank accounts being frozen. They don't care about fiat currency and hedging against that or inflation hedges. They're just looking for a volatile asset class which moves quickly and they can make a profit on it. And decades ago, that was Forex, right? That was currency exchanges. I was trading in an investment bank doing that exact thing. And now it's just crypto. They couldn't care what it is. It's just an asset class. But the ones we care about, the long-term ones who are going to shift the game and the ones we want to attract to crypto are those with the long-term narrative, the foundation, the ones who are buying to hold for the very long term, who understand this is schmuck insurance against the status quo, against the establishment, against the things that we know, right? And I think this is the perfect recipe. What we have right now, ignore the technicals, from a fundamental perspective, we have rampant inflation, the worst inflation the US has seen in 40 years. We have interest rate hikes coming shortly. We have balance sheet shrinkage, the highest balance sheet debt clocked up, which is going to take years and years to write down, right? On top of that, we have a potential war situation. Is this not the perfect storm for Bitcoin? We saw how Bitcoin performed during COVID. How will Bitcoin fare during this run now, during these uncertainties? And that is something we need to keep an eye on, because the important thing is when you're looking at trends, let me get some space here on this chart. So when we're looking at trends, it's really important that we don't try to time certain peaks and troughs. So in other words, what I'm saying is, by the time you realize, if this is crypto, By the time you realize it's a crypto winter, so this is happening, it's too late. We're already reversing back to the upside. Okay. So by the time many people have already understood that I need to sell out of my crypto, it's too late. We're ready to reverse. And that is what we're seeing now. We're seeing a lot of people start to talk about selling their Bitcoin, about getting ready for lower lows so that they can buy in at 20 again and avoid the rundown now from 38 all the way down to 20. We hear things about, oh, this is where Elon Musk buys at and this is where MicroStrategy buys in and therefore there's going to be support at that level. It's not how it works, guys. That's not how it works, right? But the important thing we need to know is when people are buying in, that's when we need to be thinking about selling. It's on this peak here when everybody's talking. The green candle disease that we talk about. This is when you want to be thinking S for sell, right? That's when you want to be thinking to sell. And when you're here, this is when you want to be buying, okay? This is where you want to be buying, okay? So this is the important lesson now. When everybody is fearful right now, we need to be thinking, hang on a second. If everybody's so convinced that this is going to go so low, maybe the opposite is going to happen because the market has an interesting way of showing you that and telling you that, right? So over the long run, it'd be very interesting to see, looking back a year from now, 2 years from now, what was this moment? Was this the start of a fall all the way down to 5K on Bitcoin? Or do we think it's more likely that this is the start of a rise to a 200K Bitcoin? And ultimately, we need to do our research and build our conviction and then accumulate accordingly if we think it's the right bet to place. Hope that has given you guys some confidence around the markets. Everything was just doom and gloom today. I was looking at the thumbnails, I was looking at the news, and everything was doom and gloom. There was no positivity. But the reality is, this is the time when we need to get to work. When nobody is watching these videos, when nobody's watching all these crypto channels, the views have gone down, the Twitter followers are down, and nobody cares. Nobody's dollar cost averaging right now, right? Nobody's talking about crypto. Your Uber driver's not talking about it. Your friends at work are not talking about it. Nobody at college or university is talking about it. Now's the time to go into your Coinbase and just as much as it hurts, buy yourself a little bit more just to say, you know what, I've done the research. I truly believe in this as the long-term asset class, and therefore I'm prepared to continue to ride this out for the longer term. But as always, you should only invest what you're willing to lose, as this is a volatile asset class, right? Very, very important. Your life savings should not be stuck in Bitcoin. It should always be a portion of your net worth that you're willing to lose, that you can afford the volatility, because crypto is extremely volatile. Hope you guys found this video useful. As always, if you appreciate the type of content, make sure you're hitting up the like button and subscribing. Don't forget to hit those buttons. It really does help this channel grow. As always, check out NordVPN, links in the description. Coupon code is OLDMAN to get yourself 70% off of a 2-year plan on a VPN. It works out like $50, guys, for 2 years on a VPN. Absolute no-brainer. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to link up in the end screen at the top right the one rule you need when investing in crypto. Given the topic of this video here, I highly suggest you go and watch that video right now. It's going to give you a lot of the backstory around my psychology and how I think about the markets. Hope you enjoy that one. See you in the next one.